We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end...
What will I become?
Senua's Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
You're listening to Away with Words, the show about language and how we use it. I'm Grant Barrett.
And I'm Martha Barnett. And Grant, I have a puzzle for you.
Okay.
Take these two words. You might want to write them down.
Okay.
Take the two words and arrange them into one word by rearranging the letters. And the two words that I want you to rearrange are new door. Take the letters in that.
New door.
Yep,
Okay.
N-E-W-D-O-O-R. Rearrange the letters into one word.
And what's my end goal? Just to get something cool happening?
Yes.
So
Get something cool happening.
wonder something. I don't know.
Take the letters in new door, rearrange them to form one word.
To form. Oh, haha, one word.
You got it. I knew you would get it. I knew you would get it.
Well, you did hit one word a little hard there.
Oh,
when you
did I?
repeated
That
it.
last
Yeah,
time?
You clued me in. Thank you for that.
That's right.
Who knows how long I would have struggled.
I thought you did really well, rearranging the letters in new door to form literally one word. Very
Nice.
good.
Yeah, my 9-year-old's going to love this one.
I thought he might. I thought you would too.
We love your puzzles. If you want to trick us or fool us or riddle us, give us a call, 877-929-9673, or email us words@waywardradio.org. Hello, you have a Way with Words.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Who is this?
This is Jeanette from San Diego.
Hi, Jeanette. Welcome to the show.
What can we do for you, Jeanette?
So I was wondering, I'm from New York originally, and I'm now living in California, and it's about the pronunciation of the word Carnegie. So growing up in New York, we have Carnegie Hall. We're familiar with Carnegie, the steel industrialist who, was a philanthropist and built Carnegie Mellon, Carnegie Hall, etc. But on your show, I keep hearing about, such and such a show was funded by Carnegie Trust Fund and Carnegie. So I was wondering about the pronunciation and which is the correct pronunciation, Carnegie or Carnegie?
Yeah, well, if you're talking about the industrialist and philanthropist who gave the money for all of those things, he was from Scotland originally, Andrew Carnegie.
He was actually a Scot, right? He was
Right.
an Americanized Scot.
Right.
Irish.
Right.
Or Scotch-American, yeah.
Yes, and if you go to his little hometown in Scotland, that's what you'll hear again and again.
Carnegie.
Carnegie.
Carnegie, accent on the second syllable.
With more of an A than an E.
Right.
So the Carnegie Hall that exists in New York should actually be pronounced Carnegie Hall?
Well, I'm not going to argue with 9 million New Yorkers.
No, he tried that and it didn't work. So
that's a battle that won't be won, huh?
It is a local pronunciation. As far back as the 1940s, you can find people in the Carnegie Journal, which is about Carnegie Museum and the Carnegie all this stuff, complaining about the New York pronunciation of the word.
So it's only in New York that it's pronounced Carnegie.
Well, mostly,
Everywhere
and people who
outside
learn
it's
from New
pronounced
Yorkers.
Carnegie?
Yeah.
yeah, Western Pennsylvania, they get Carnegie right.
Yeah.
But,
they say Nagy or Nagy.
It's kind of a combination
just
of those two. But, Jeanette, you raise an interesting, larger question, and I'm so glad you're from San Diego because I have a question for you.
Sure.
About 3 or 4 times a week, I go hiking on the highest mountain in this area, and you probably know it, and it's spelled Cowles. How do you pronounce the name of that mountain?
Cowles.
Mm-hmm.
I would pronounce it Cowles Mountain.
Right. I know. And that's my problem because properly that mountain is pronounced Coles Mountain. It was named for a guy whose last name is Coles. And in fact, if you go to the trailhead, there's all this information from the Mission Trails Regional Park that includes the proper pronunciation of the mountain. But my problem is when I tell people here in San Diego even that I hike on Coles Mountain, they correct me and say, oh, no, it's Cowles, Cowles. So my question to both of you is, what do you do about that? If you know the technical name for something, but everybody else calls it something else, or you think, I mean, it's like every time I switch to Cowles, I always find somebody who says, oh, but it's Coles.
Right.
So it just always stops down the conversation. So I just sort of say the mountain near my home.
As a person who works with a lot of, has worked as an English teacher, for immigrant individuals, right, with lots of different accents that they bring into our English.
Right.
I have to say, what I say to that is, Viva la différence. and I applaud the diversity, right?
Yeah.
And I think that living in today's global society, we have to really applaud diversity and welcome nuances in accents and in phrases. Your show is all about that, of idiomatic expressions from different regions and different eras of time. So that makes life interesting.
Yeah, we're all about diversity.
And when in Rome, do what the Romans
And-
do.
Exactly.
So when
because,
in New York,
just
say
like
Carnegie.
you don't fight with New Yorkers, I wouldn't fight with.
That's right. We know it's Houston.
Houston Street. Yeah, there's one little note I want to toss in here about Carnegie versus Carnegie, and that is that he became a well-known figure before radio. So you were more likely to read his name rather than to hear his name.
There you
And
go.
so the
I
local
see.
New York
So that
pronunciation
opened it up for interpretation with pronunciation.
and people, the regular person did not have that personal access to the Carnegie family in order to adopt that actual pronunciation.
Well, that makes sense. Well, Jeanette, thank you
There
so
you
much
go.
for your call.
Well, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Thank you. I appreciate your taking my call.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Call us 877-929-9673 or share those language stories in email. The address is words@waywardradio.org. Hello, you have a way with words.
Hi, this is LaSonia Moore from Euless, Texas.
Hi, Lasagna. Welcome to the show. How can we help?
Thank you. So I have a friend, an older gentleman that I'm dating. He's about 15 years older than me. And sometimes when he tries to, I'll say, get fresh, quote-unquote, fresh with me, and I want to come to his advances, he will apologize to me, and he will say, I'm sorry for losing my faculties with you.
His faculties?
Yes.
Yeah.
Faculties. And I've just never heard that word used to relate to, trying to do that to someone. And I'm just trying to get a better understanding of the history of that word and if he's using it correctly.
So how long have you been dating this guy?
I've been dating him for 6 months now.
Okay.
And what would you expect him to say rather than that?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe I apologize for trying to get fresh with you. Maybe that was inappropriate. I apologize for being inappropriate. I would expect something like that.
Did you
But
ask
not
him?
faculties. I've never heard that.
I've never heard that either
Did you
in that
ask him?
context.
Did you ask him about it?
I did. And then he says, he tells me, that's what it means. It means that I made an advancement towards you and you rejected the advancement, so I lost my faculties with you. I lost myself with you.
Yeah, I could see how he could get there. And here's why, Lasagna. Faculties can mean your senses. So he lost his senses. He lost control of his behavior, more or less. And he let his emotions feelings get the better of him and stop being able to govern his actions. I guess that's what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
Because if your faculties are it's like your mental or your physical abilities, and a lot of times it's just kind of reduced down into your senses and your sense of awareness, your sense of place, your sense of propriety, those kinds of senses, as well as touch and taste and seeing and so forth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
your ability to control your impulses, I guess. But, I have to say that sounds really charming and gallant
Does
to
it?
me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is he a gallant speaker?
He is. Yes, he is.
I mean, it just sounds so, I don't know, gentlemanly and chivalrous.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, sorry, whatever, which you could have said, right?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Yeah, I mean, is this the kind of guy who would, I mean, I'm picturing the kind of guy who would, lay down his coat across a puddle for you to step across. Have I got that right?
Yes, open the door, make sure you're comfortable, make sure the temperature is correct, make sure you have everything that you need. Very formal. So, yes, it kind of fits his personality.
I see.
Send us a postcard when the wedding happens, will
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I sure will. Well, thank you for this. This was great.
Oh,
Our
good.
pleasure.
Good.
Thanks for
Yeah, it
calling.
doesn't sound like you two need much help.
I would say good luck with that, all right?
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Tell him hello for us.
Thank you.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We do solve marriages and now love lives.
We do, and we'd love to know what you think. Call us, 877-929-9673. Grant, do you know this exhibit at LACMA, the LA County Museum of Art, called the Rain Room? It's really, really popular, and you go into this room, and it looks like it's raining in there, but any place a person goes and walks around, they don't get rained on.
No, I
And
don't know that room.
They turned on the lights purple after Prince died
That's nice.
to honor him. Well, the reason I ask you, and the reason I asked you that way, was I was talking with a friend the other day, and I said, "Oh, have you been to the Rain Room?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, I've been to the Rain Room." And then she realized, "Oh, wait, no, I haven't. I've only seen it online." And we both realized that we had this sense of having been there without actually going there. And I was thinking about the conversation as a result of that you and I had years ago about fofiness. Do you remember this?
Friend of a friend?
Yes. When we see people on Facebook who aren't necessarily our friends, like
Right.
maybe the children or the dates or the spouses of the people who are our friends, but we feel like we know them and we feel like we know what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Because we've seen our friends' Facebook feed. And so I was thinking there ought to be a word for experiential fofiness.
Something like that.
Something where you feel like you've had the experience, but you haven't really.
Yeah, I had an embarrassing moment a few years ago where there's a woman who is a friend of I have 20 or 30 friends in common with her on Facebook. She's involved in politics one way or the other. And then I saw her in the park. There's an event, a gathering of some kind. And I greeted her like somebody that I really knew. And she gave me laser eyes, how is this man threatening me? Because I was
Isn't
too
that weird?
Yeah, it was weird, but I felt sorry about the dog. Yeah, the new place looks good. I didn't say that, but that's what I was feeling inside. Kind of all this stuff I know about her. The new place looks great. Oh yeah, the sorry about the car trouble. Whatever, this kind of stuff that you see on Facebook.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So she was a a friend of a friend. So weird. Well, if you have a word for experiential fofiness, let us know what it is, 877-929-9673, or send it to us in email. The address is words@waywardradio.org.
We talk with more good folks about language when The Way with Words continues.
We took it all. We brought them to our land. An endless night, ember hot and icy cold. The rage of the earth. We made this curse. Carved it in the blood on our backs. We did not see. We could not, but she did. And in the end,
What will I become? Senwa Saga. Hellblade 2.
Play it now with Game Pass.
You're listening to A Way with Words, the show about language and how we use it. I'm Martha Barnett.
And I'm Grant Barrett, and we're joined by John Chinesky from New York City. Hey, quiz guy, what's up, bud?
Hey, John.
Hi, word people. How are you? I'm doing just fine.
All right.
I imagine that most of our listeners, being word freaks and puzzle people, are like me. They like lists. You guys like lists, don't you? Just every
Sure,
once in a while.
yeah.
Sure. It's just nothing about diving into a list. So, no, we don't usually go the trivia route here, but I'm making an exception because this is all about words. I'm using as my source material the top 100 most common words in English as compiled by Oxford Online, which is associated with the Oxford English Dictionary. I'm going to start very, very easy. There are only 2 words on this list that are one letter long. What are they?
A and I.
And A.
Yes, A and I. A is word number 6, and I is number 10, exactly number 10. Very good. Great start. Now, there are exactly 2 cardinal numbers on the list. What are they?
First.
Oh.
Aha.
Wait, is that?
We need, yes, no, we have to,
Cardinal
one of
numbers.
you is going down the right path.
Oh,
and the other one is
heck.
not.
One is O-N-E.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then 10?
No, not 10.
5.
2.
2 is right,
Oh,
Martha.
2?
Yes.
Okay.
You're spanking him, yes. 1 is
I'm
at number
guessing.
35, and 2 is at number 84. Doesn't matter. Guesses are just as good in this game. Next question. There is exactly 1 ordinal number on the list. What is it?
Oh, first.
First.
That's first, yes. But Martha got that in first, as they do on the internet. First. Now to the top of the list. What are the first 5 words on the list of the top 100 most common words?
Oh, Lord.
The
Yeah.
Yes, that's number 1.
and
Is.
That's number 5.
me.
R?
No.
Not A-R-E, no?
Really?
No.
Is
Words, no. Words 2,
Am.
3, and no. I'll give you this. Words 2, 3, and 4 are all 2-letter words, and word number 2 is actually a form of the word am. That is, it's B.
Oh, 2.
Oh, I see.
Did we say
Yeah.
2 already? T-O?
No, you didn't, and that's number 3.
Okay. Of.
Of is correct. Very good. You got all 5. Nicely done. Only 3 letters of the alphabet do not appear in any word on the list. What are they?
X,
Yeah.
X is right.
Q,
Z.
Q is right, and Z is right. Yes, very good. Your Scrabble score has just tripled. Now, the first 3 nouns that appear on the list can be placed into the following blanks in order to make an annual issue of a U.S. magazine. What are they? Blank,
Sports,
blank.
bikini.
No. Let me yes,
What?
bikini's on the top 100 words in English. Blank, blank of the blank.
Times Man of the Year.
Oh.
Not
Times
man.
Person of the Year.
Yes, time
man.
person of the year. Very good. 55, 61, and 63 in order.
Nice.
Yes,
That's very
thank
clever
What
you.
an
one.
interesting quiz. We learned a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. We'll talk
Take
to you
care,
next
John.
week.
Bye-bye.
Next week.
Bye. 877-929-9673. Email words@waywardradio.org or tell us all about your language dilemmas on Twitter at WAYWORD. Hello, you have a way with words.
Hi, this is Anna. I'm calling from Indianapolis, Indiana.
Hello, Anna. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Anna.
What's up?
Well, I have a question about the word ask. I am a consultant in the electric power industry, and over the last few years, I've been involved with a lot of projects where we have to report to executives, and usually we're wanting something from them, such as more time or more money or something like that. And whenever we are creating presentations for these groups of executives, people always say to me, what is the ask? We need to really narrow down that ask, and we need to frame the ask correctly. So basically they are changing the word ask from a verb into a noun. And I have to confess, it drives me absolutely crazy because I feel like we already have words that they could be using, for example, question or request. It seems to me that, a request for the executives would work just as well. So my question was really if you had any idea when this started and why it started and why business people love to create new words all the time.
Ask is weird because you grow up not hearing it the way that you're hearing it now, right? It sounds just kind of weird. And linguists call that process nominalization, where you take a word that doesn't usually function as a noun and make it function that way. Like, I don't know, do you and your colleagues talk about epic fails?
All the time.
All the time. Okay, and does that bother you or just strike you weird, or does it seem clever, or what?
You know what? That one doesn't bother me, probably because I started hearing that one when I was a teenager, and I thought it was, new and fun.
Right. And so you heard ask for most of your life as a verb, right? And then when you get into
Right.
the business world and it becomes a noun. And there are a lot of words that do that. We talk about the big reveal in a Hollywood movie or
Instead of revelation.
Yeah, the big reveal.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of the opposite of ask, tell. When we talk about poker, a tell is a gesture or an expression that tells something about what you're feeling. In the case of ask, in the business world, I think it does have a more specific shade of meaning, a kind of specificity to it.
So you're saying that a question or request wouldn't quite work.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, I know in the fundraising world, an ask is something very specific. You're not just making a general ask, you're asking for $10,000 or something like that. The other weird thing about ask as a noun is that it goes back 1,000 years or so. Isn't that weird?
Really?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Even before modern English was modern
Yeah.
English, like back into English that doesn't look like English.
Yeah, Old English in 900 or so. And that's in part because we didn't have the word request at that point. And I'm assuming we didn't have question. I'm not sure about that one. But I know that we didn't have request, which came to us from French in the 14th century. So in the business world, I used to be bothered by the notion of ask, but more and more it seems like business jargon that's kind of useful.
Yeah, I mean, now that you've explained it, I can see where it, is a little bit more functional than I thought. So.
And you guys use it a lot then, or your colleagues
Oh,
do?
we use it all the time, and it most often does involve money. The ask is usually, for $1 million or something like that.
Yeah, or for somebody to do a specific thing, right?
Right, yeah. It's usually when they're trying to zero in on the specific thing that they want the executives to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it almost always involves asking upper management or, leadership for something.
Right. Well, my suspicion, and I think Grant will agree with me, is that it's going to become more and more common, and just because of its utility.
Yeah, if you search in the news index like Factiva or LexisNexis, you will see a gradual increase over time proportionally of the use of a variety of constructions that use ask as a noun, like make an ask or making an ask. And and it's really interesting. This falls squarely into what Martha was saying about this kind of business jargon that repels people but is so useful. And it's partly repels people because they are newcomers to it. And so we have this kind of like, oh, there's a symbol, the sign of the foreigner, the outsider, the person who doesn't belong. Let's reject it. And we have to slowly accommodate ourselves to the fact that we are now insiders in the group that uses the language that we despise.
Exactly, yeah. It usually takes me a few years to warm up to any new business word.
Thank you so much for your call.
Oh, well, thank you. This helped me out a lot. Thank you very much.
Sure. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Call us with your language question, 877-929-9673. Hi, you have a way with words.
Hi, this is Asher in Burlington, Vermont.
Hi, Asher. Welcome to the show. How can we help you?
My dad, I was about 3 years old, and him and my mom were hanging out, and he jokingly called me a little Gomer. Gomer spelled Gomer, and I had no idea what that was and ran into the other room crying, to which they both cracked up. And to this day, still don't really know what Gomer is. I was recently visiting my dad in Indiana, and he gave me a little more insight how there was a character named Gomer Pyle on the show, the Andy Griffith Show. But he still didn't really have an explanation of, where the term or the word came from. So I'm hoping maybe you can provide a little more insight.
Gomer Pyle. Boy, that really takes me back.
Yeah, right?
I watched that program every single day after school.
Do his catchphrase.
Which one? Well, golly.
Yeah, that's
and
the
he would
one.
say Shazam, too. He was just the biggest goofball. I mean, he had his own show.
Yeah, he went on to do several shows with the same character, right? This kind of rustic, rude, local yokel guy.
Yeah,
right?
Jim Neighbors.
Yeah, that's what we know about Gomer. It really pops up immediately as soon as that show hit the airwaves in 1963, and it became common slang for a stupid person, a loser, a hick, a hillbilly, somebody who didn't know, one end of a stick from the other, that sort of person.
But he was good-hearted.
But
He
was good-hearted,
prevailed in the end.
But Gomer kind of lost that connotation and just became a kind of a gentle derogatory term.
So my dad was calling me a bit of an idiot, but a good-hearted idiot.
Yeah, maybe.
Good-hearted
You hope so.
3-year-old. Yeah. It's a very sweet term, I think, little Gomer.
It's not very common anymore, though.
No.
No, well, he was a big fan of the show, and that's where he said he got it from.
Oh, he did. Okay. All right. Yeah, you should go. I actually, Asher, have the complete box set of Gomer Pyle.
You do?
I do. I loved it.
Do you?
Okay.
Yeah, you got to
That's
check it
awesome.
out, Asher. This would be a good bonding experience for you.
I guess we got to go watch some Gomer Pyle together.
But that's it, yeah, Gomer. And there's a medical use of it that is far more common now, medical slang Gomer, where everyone believes it stands for get out of my emergency room, but it doesn't. It also comes from this fellow on the show. And if you look in, there's an article written in the Journal of American Speech in 1989. The linguist who put that together has a really important part where he talks about Everett Greenbaum, who wrote the show, named it after a writer he knew named Gomer Cool. So he named the character
I
Gomer
didn't
Pyle
know
after
that.
Gomer Cool.
Oh.
And so we actually have like a really nice connection there where we've got like a solid evidence that the word came from the show, and we know where the name in the show came from too, which is really rare for slang, like incredibly rare. So anytime doctors and medical folks bring up the Gomer that they think stands for the acronym, we're able to confidently say, no, it does not come from that acronym, despite what you believe.
And that's somebody with a lot of complaints or physical complaints.
Yeah, just somebody who comes in and they're just, they want everything from you, all of your time, all of your resources, all of your staff.
Get out of my emergency room.
Very, very interesting.
Thanks for calling.
Hey, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Okay, take care, Asher.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
You can find us at 877-929-9673. Email words@waywardradio.org or talk to us on Twitter at WAYWORD.
We heard from Glenn Reinhardt in San Antonio, Texas. And he writes, last week, my daughter, 8-year-old Cameron, and I were listening to a past episode of A Way with Words. During the puzzle with John Chinesky, Martha commented on how the words peppered and leopard rhyme and should be part of a limerick. So Cameron and I took up Martha's challenge.
Let's see it.
Okay, this limerick is called The Fastidious Feline. A hungry yet finicky leopard, one day she encountered a shepherd. But she chose to get thinner, 'stead of making him dinner. For the man was not salted and peppered.
Oh, nice.
I think that's a pretty great collaboration between a guy and his 8-year-old daughter. Congratulations, Cameron.
Good stuff. Good stuff. 877-929-9673.
Hello, you have A Way with Words.
Hi, this is Philippe.
Philippe, where are you calling us from?
I am calling from Eureka, California. My local radio station is KHSU Arcata,
Oh, very
Humboldt
good.
State University.
Welcome to the show, Philippe. How can we help?
Well, I hear a lot of people using the word precipice in sports, in politics, and trying to mean that it's we are on the precipice, which means that we're getting ready to have a big event.
Mm-hmm.
Precipice is a French word, and precipice is actually a hole in the ground, a chasm. And if you're on the precipice, you are crashing, you're falling, and it's not good news. My question to you is, did the meaning change when it went from the French word to the Americanized version, or is it bad use of that word? I mean, in French, you're always on the edge of the precipice, but you're not on the precipice.
Interesting. That's a really great question. We did get this from the French. The English speakers got this from the French speakers about 400 years ago, but it wasn't much before that it entered French itself from Latin, at least according to Le Petit Robert Dictionary, which is the one that I use. What's even more interesting to me is if you look this word up in a big dictionary, one that has all the different meanings of precipice in English, you will find that it does admit or does allow you to use it to mean the hole itself, not just the edge of the hole or the cliff, the cliff that surrounds an abyss or the cliff that surrounds a valley or that sort of thing. But you're right. You're totally right. In English, we're more likely to think of it as the lip itself, as that very highest point where you step one foot forward and you're going down to your death, right? That's how we think of it.
So if you're on the precipice, are you actually falling or are you right at the edge?
If you looked it up in French, I suspect that you will find both. I think there's both exist in French as well. It either means that you are about to fail, like it's an inevitable that you will fail, or that there's a chance that you could fail if certain conditions happen.
Yeah, actually, when I did look at it before the show here, and it is the hole. So if you're on the precipice, you're failing, you're falling.
You're done already.
Yeah, you're in real trouble. There's a pretty funny quote by a politician way back then. He was saying that France was on the edge of the precipice, and if he was elected, we would take a step forward, which was a terrible way to
that's no good.
That's terrible.
To say. Yeah, it's the worst thing to say, but it didn't hurt him. He got elected, but still, it's just it's one of those things. So it's a funny meaning for me. When I hear it here, and we are on the precipice, it's usually pretty bad news.
Yeah.
I mean, you really nailed something here. I mean, we're talking about 400 years of divergent history. I think it's amazing that the words are as alike as they are, because we've had centuries for this word to change in both languages, even more dramatically than they have.
That's so interesting. All the mountain hiking I do, I think of precipice as being something way up high rather than...
Right, but way up high with like chance of death just beyond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't back up too far to take that selfie.
You're thinking Grand Canyon, chasm, vertical drops. It's usually a very, very dire situation. If you're falling in the precipice, you're in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. Thank you so much, Philippe. We really appreciate your call.
Well, thank you very much.
Take care now.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, if a word or phrase is puzzling you, we'd love to talk with you about it. Call us at 877-929-9673. Or if you have a story about language, send it to us in email. That address is words@waywardradio.org. Our conversation about terms of endearment in different languages prompted Christine Ruffner to write us from Myanmar. She lives in Lashio there, and she noted that the term atele in that country means my little liver.
Atele, and that's a term of affection.
Yes, isn't that sweet?
Atele,
my little liver. Sort of like we might say my heart.
My sweetheart, yeah.
Yeah, and apparently the liver is something celebrated in other languages in a way that we don't.
Yeah,
in Persian as well. It's a term
in the Middle
of
East,
endearment.
throughout the Middle East and much of the Arabic-speaking world.
Yeah, so it's nice to
My
get
little
beyond
liver.
our borders.
Yeah, and it seems weird to us because we don't use it.
Yeah. So thanks to Christine for writing us from Myanmar.
Give us a call, 877-929-9673, or send us something on Twitter at WAYWORD. More conversation about what we say and why we say it when A Way with Words continues.
Hey, we've got something special for those of you who love our show but could do without the ads.
That's right. Imagine A Way with Words, the same engaging conversations, the same deep dives into language without advertising interruptions.
We're talking about our ad-free podcast feed. It's sleek, clean, and it's just for our supporters. It's at waywardradio.org/ad-free.
It's inexpensive, easy to sign up for, and works with all major podcast apps like Apple Podcasts and Spotify.
It's an affordable way to support the show and get a seamless listening experience.
And if you're feeling generous, why not give a subscription to another A Way with Words fan? That's waywardradio.org/ad-free.
Sign up today. Your support means the world.
waywardradio.org/ad-free. Thank you. You're listening to A Way with Words, the show about language and how we use it. I'm Grant Barrett.
And I'm Martha Barnett. My father grew up in poverty in the mountains of North Carolina. And at age 13, he moved to a nearby town and begged for a job in a textile mill. And this was before child labor laws. And so at age 13, he was working 10-hour days, 5.5 days a week. And what he would do was stand with these giant blades to cut towels as they came through the machinery. And over the next 5 years, standing there in that same spot, doing that same repetitive motion over and over and over again, he wore a hole into the solid oak floor. And he used to tell me a lot of stories about that experience. He talked about how they were all called lint heads, the people in his town, because there was all this lint in the air that stuck to their hair and clothing. And the other thing that he always told me was about how deafening it was inside that textile mill. He would have nightmares on into his 80s and 90s about being in this deafening textile mill and not being able to get out. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately and wishing that I could talk with him about that, because I've been reading up on the language, the sign language that people in loud industrial situations have to work out in order to communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You and I both read this article
Yeah, that's right.
recently about
It was
sawmill.
on Atlas Obscura, I believe.
Yeah, which is a wonderful site. And linguists have studied this to some degree, and in some places they've found as many as 175 different signs that
that's
people
cool.
are using in that kind of situation. And for me, it's really fascinating because you sort of see a language being born. The idea that they're not only telling each other with hand motions how many things to produce or how long an item should be before they cut it, but they're coming up with terms for, like, the word week. It's going to take a week, or in a week. They might use like a hand over the muscle as a pun to mean weak.
Oh, the joking that the guy's muscle is weak. Sure.
Yeah, and a lot of that language, which I'm sure you appreciate, is crafted in order to keep the bosses from knowing what they're talking about.
Oh, interesting.
I was reading about mills in the UK where people used a tapping of the head, the top of the head, to mean that the big managers are coming in, because these were the people who would be wearing top hats.
Oh, very good.
Yeah. So it's just kind of a fascinating little language that's not heard, literally, not heard about very much.
Yeah, I read that article with a lot of fascination, and we will link to that in the show notes for this episode. We're really interested, too, in knowing more about what you do. What is this, something that's not quite language but feels like language? Do you have signs and signals, something in your family, perhaps? In my family, we have this really dumb little thing we do, what we call kitten paws.
That's
You put your
cute.
little hands up next to your chest, and you tuck your fingers down like a little kitten paws folded over. And in our sign, it's kind of the universal sign of, oh, isn't that cute?
Oh, you look like a baby T-Rex.
Yeah.
Sort of.
Anyway, share it with us if you've got something, just this little kind of quasi-language, a sign, a signal, a special word. 877-929-9673. Email words@waywardradio.org. Hello, you have a Way with Words.
Hi, this is Kat calling from Dallas, Texas.
Hi, Kat. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What's up?
I have a phrase that I've said since I was a kid, and it's something I learned from my mother, and it's no great shakes. For instance, if you said, oh, John's wonderful, he volunteers at the church all the time, he's a loving husband, you might say, oh, he's no great shakes. And it's because you happen to know something about him, such as, well, he's no great shakes, he steals from the collection plate.
Oh, my. You're wondering about the origin of that?
Yeah, I had a friend, and she refused to believe that was an actual saying. She would say, no, you're just weird. You get that from your mother. She says all kinds of weird things.
Oh.
But then she read a book by a Japanese author, and the phrase was in there, and she came to me, and she said, oh, my God, that's not just something you and your goofy family say. It's an actual thing.
Oh, yeah, I say it all the time. No great shakes. Meaning
no big deal.
Not a big deal, yeah.
Nothing to make a big party
Yeah.
about.
And I have to say, when I was growing up, I thought it had to do with milkshakes. You know, like a chocolate milkshake that just,
When
is a
you're a
little bit
kid,
melted.
those are way up
or-
there in the list of desirable things.
I know, right? But that's probably not the origin. Definitely not
Definitely
the
not the origin.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fairly common expression, actually. There are a couple of theories about it. There's one that it has to do with throwing dice, and if you're, shaking your hand with the dice in it, and then you throw a bad toss, that it was no great shake. But I don't really buy that one. The other one that makes more sense to me is that shake boast is an old expression that means to swagger or be boastful, and if you have no great shake, then you're not
You don't have
really
anything to
anything to
boast
boast
about.
about. But I don't,
They're both kind of
yeah, the
iffy.
evidence we have on these isn't very convincing.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
term just kind of
think.
pops up free of any kind of suggestive context, right?
Yeah,
But on the other hand, we do have gambling does kind of insinuate itself
it
into
sure
to the
does.
casual language in the United States, pretty much
Definitely.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Is it old-fashioned?
Yeah, it's got a good long history going back to the early 1800s at least,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even earlier.
Because a lot of times when I use that phrase, people look at me and they'll say, I love the way you talk. You say the weirdest stuff. And it's like they've never heard it before, but you told me it's fairly common.
Oh,
Yeah, it's common enough. Yeah, I think probably if you surveyed a group of adults across a wide variety of ages, half the people would know it immediately. I mean, I'm just guessing here, but I think it's common enough for that. The fact that the translator of it was obviously written in English, the Japanese book. Who was the author?
Haruka Murakami?
So yeah, Murakami doesn't write in English, so that the translator felt it
Mm-hmm.
appropriate to translate from Japanese into English suggests that the translator thought it was current enough to use, that the average literate reader would get it.
I'm going to have to get that book again and read it again just so I could see. Because I did read it myself and I saw that and I was like, yeah, it's the same.
Yeah.
But I'll have to see how it was
it's the
used.
same. And I would say that I love the fact that when people point out odd things in your language, I would take that as a badge of pride. It's just your literacy coming through, right?
Kat, you're not as weird as you thought.
Oh, I never thought I was weird. I thought they were just misinformed. And
Yeah, there we
uneducated.
go. That's the attitude.
You're right. And that's the solution to everything. Call weird people to
Everyone else
confirm
is
that you're not
weird.
weird.
I am normal.
The three of us are not weird.
All right.
Kat,
Nice
thanks.
book club we got.
Thank you so much. All right.
Thank you.
Take
right,
care.
cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you say no great shakes, Grant?
Yeah.
No
I mean,
great
it wouldn't be
shakes?
something I would say
No
all
great
the
shakes?
time. I'd probably more like to say no big deal. Speaking of other gambling terms in English.
There we go.
Right.
Well, maybe it is a gambling term. I just don't see evidence for it, really.
No, there's no evidence for either one of those. They're both really insubstantial. It pops up like 1819 or
Yeah.
so. And I read through all the early citations in the Oxford English Dictionary, did some digging on my own. I'm like, I got nothing here. Right? That's typically how it works. You can spend a week on a term and be no better off than you were when you started.
And we do. So take advantage of that by calling us 877-929-9673 or send your stories about language in email to words@waywardradio.org. Hi, you have a way with words.
Hi, this is Alex phoning from Montreal.
Hi, Alex. Welcome.
Well, the question I had, I serve as a Master Corporal in the Canadian Armed Forces, specifically in the Infantry Corps. And my question was related to the pronunciation of lieutenant. Now, where I come from, it's very, I guess by tradition, it's a very Anglo unit. So a few members, including myself, refer to lieutenants as lieutenants. And that's also very common in the British Army and the British Armed Forces in general. So I was always wondering why it's pronounced that way, especially in the more Commonwealth nations, compared to, let's say, in the States, where the rank is referred to as lieutenant.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So you're in Canada, and you follow, at least for this particular word, the more traditional British pronunciation, lieutenant.
Yes. My unit specifically is a household unit. It's a guards unit.
Okay.
So by tradition, we're quite English.
Yeah, and Canada overall is squeezed between two major influences, both the UK influence and the United States influence, right? And so it's going to get pushed from both sides, and you can see this happening with things like whether or not the last letter is Z or Z. Just to make one thing clear to everybody who's listening, the word, regardless of its pronunciation, is still spelled the same, right? It's Lieutenant, right?
Still spelled the same way.
Yeah, and that's what's especially confusing for folks. First, you've got to understand that both pronunciations come from French. Both of these pronunciations existed in French before the word was fully borrowed into English. So it's not something that the Americans came up with or invented on their own. Oh, there's a little asterisk that I'll explain in a minute. And so this happened in French. There were a number of different words that had U's in them where the U wasn't altogether clearly separated from the V. And the V and the F sounds can be very similar on the lips, right? Whether or not they're voiced or unvoiced and a couple other factors. And so we have this kind of small group, this cluster of words that can be pronounced either with a F or V sound or without it. And this was one of those words. And nobody really knows why the French started doing that, except there was a regional dialect where this apparently became more common. Let it be known that it wasn't some United States aberration that came up with lieutenant. Although Noah Webster, who had a tremendous influence on the pronunciation of many words in American English and United States English, did prefer the Lou pronunciation, L-I-E-U, to be pronounced, because he felt it hewed more closely to the etymological origins of the word. And he put that in his dictionaries as a preferred pronunciation. Now, as a Canadian, I don't know if you know, but there was a time in the United States where if you had books in your house, they went in this order of frequency: the Bible, Noah Webster's dictionary, and some Shakespeare. And so we're just talking like the number 2 book for the longest time, like the second most common book that you were likely to read in American households was this dictionary. So it did have some influence on how Americans spell and how they speak.
Okay. I'm actually quite surprised that in French, lieutenant was even a thing. I always assumed that it was lieutenant.
Yeah, and it's interesting. The French over the centuries or even longer have done a variety of things that have squashed out or drastically reduced the influence of their regional dialects. And even today, some of this takes place. But there was a time when the diversity of the types of language spoken in what is today France were pretty much like they were when Italy became a nation, just like incredibly diverse, really interesting, a lot of Germanic influences or Dutch influences or words hanging on from centuries before. Just really interesting stuff, and a lot of that has been extinguished or almost is now considered archaic or even just something they hang on to in order to have some pride, but it's not actually a living language anymore, unfortunately.
An attempt to bring everyone together under one sort of identity.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your call.
Thanks for taking me.
Yeah,
keep
sure.
up the great work, guys.
Yeah,
Love
take
your
care now.
show.
Good luck.
Thanks, Alex.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You mentioned the etymological origin, but we didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, placeholder, right?
Yeah.
Lou meaning place and tenant meaning holding or holder.
Exactly, yes.
So you're standing in for somebody. It's equivalent to the Latin locum tenens, which people who are in medicine may know about the locum. He's the guy that fills in with does your rounds for you or handles your patients while you are on vacation or you're sick yourself.
Yeah, literally in place of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lieutenant, in lieu of you. We'd love to hear your question about language, so call us 877-929-9673 or share those language stories in email. The address is words@waywardradio.org. We heard from Tom Mulcahy in Indianapolis, who wants to know, why does an usher ush? Or is that one of those verb-sounding words that isn't one? Why does an usher ush?
Does it come from shushing people?
No, that was my guess, too.
They usher you down the aisle.
Right.
Right? They're leading you from place to place.
Right. Actually, it goes ultimately back to the Latin word os, which means mouth, because an usher was somebody who stood at the mouth of a building, at the door.
Oh, interesting.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I love when we get questions
Usher,
like that.
osh, from mouth. That's very cool. Yeah.
Nice, right? 877-929-9673.
Hello, you have a way with words.
Hi, this is Leanne calling from San Diego.
Hi, Leanne. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Leanne.
Thank you.
What can we do for you?
Well, here is my question. My mom used to put me to sleep at night and tuck me in the 1950s and would say this expression, have sweet dreams and rest in the arms of Morpheus. And I'm interested in how that came to be a phrase, why someone would be using that in everyday sign-off for their children, and anything else you could tell me about the use of it.
So did it make you feel secure then?
Oh, it was just lovely. Who wouldn't want to sleep in the arms of someone? And I understood who Morpheus was, but I had no idea where she might have heard that or if anybody else used it. It just is a question that's been with me.
Sleep in the arms of Morpheus. And you say you already know that Morpheus was the ancient god of dreams.
Yes.
Ultimately, he became the god of sleep. But in ancient Greece, he was the god of dreams and sort of a shape-shifting character who could get into your dreams and impersonate people. And we get the
all
word
the better.
Yeah, right. It comes from the Greek word morphe, which means form, and we get the words metamorphosis from that. And ultimately, we get the word morphine, which induces sleep.
Yes.
From the name of
yes,
Morpheus.
but how would it be that somebody would come that would be an expression that people would use?
Yeah, it's a gorgeous expression and one that's used less and less. I don't know about.
It would go back to when we were more classically literate,
Right.
Yeah, when it was the kind of thing that everyone who went to school would read the myths.
Right.
And he was also had the same name in both mythologies, right? In the Roman and the Greek mythologies.
Mm-hmm. In Ovid's Metamorphosis.
Yes.
Yeah, but
how did this come to be something that people ever used in modern times, in the 50s, for example?
Right. I understand your question, and I'm not sure of any song or any passage in literature that would have suggested that exact phrase.
But what you would have is, if you think about the influence that television shows have today, where they're a common cultural touchstone, and we might call back to a story that we all know because we've all seen the show and say, oh yeah, that's just like George Costanza and the Fat Wallet, right? Or, that's like waiting in line at the Chinese restaurant with nothing happening, right? At a time when everyone knew these mythologies, if you were educated at all, you knew them, it'd be easy to say, yeah, I was so tired last night, it was like I went to sleep in the arms of Morpheus. And everybody's like, oh yeah, Morpheus, sleeping, dreaming, being tired. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Mm-hmm. And so even today, these mythological figures have given us a whole bunch of other words. All of them have, more or less, most of them anyway. And even today, you can say thundering like Zeus, and people will still get, oh yeah, Zeus is the god of thunder. He throws lightning bolts, right?
Yes.
And so pretty much it's just a cultural touch point. We all have it in common there where we can refer back to it to make sure that we're understood.
I love it. Well, it's quite possible that other listeners have gone to bed and heard exactly those same words. Mm. If you've heard that phrase, let us know. Call us at 877-929-9673 or send an email to words@waywardradio.org.
Leanne, thank you so much for your call.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Want more Away with Words? Listen to years of past episodes at waywardradio.org or find the show in any podcast app or on iTunes.
Our toll-free line is always open, so leave us a message at 877-929-9673 and we'll take a listen.
We love to get your messages at words@waywardradio.org or hit us up on Twitter at WAYWORD and look for us on Facebook.
This program would not be possible without you. Grant and I are out to change the way we listen and think about language, and you're making it happen.
Thanks also to senior producer Stephanie Levine, director and editor Tim Felton, director Colin Tedeschi, and production assistant Emma Kelman in San Diego.
In New York, we thank quiz guy John Chinesky and that master of keeping it real, Paul Ruist at Argo Studios.
Away with Words is an independent production of Wayward Inc.
From the Recording Arts Center at Studio West in San Diego, I'm Martha Barnett.
And I'm Grant Barrett.
So long.
Bye-bye.